Before I continue with the rest of this video, I need to make an announcement. I now have a Starbound server you can hang out on. Actually, two servers. Both are modded. One is SFW, and the other is NSFW, and has some things I can't really discuss here on YouTube. Head on over to my Discord for more details. Late last year, 2022, I released a video giving some Starbound mod recommendations for people who are new to the game and want to dive into some mods for the first time. In it, I gave some recommendations for larger mods, and I wanted to give a recommendation for a mod that added tons of fresh new content to Starbound while not being overwhelming like Frackin' Universe can be. A mod that would give players an enhanced vanilla experience, in other words. I picked Betabound for that spot simply because I was familiar enough with it to say, hey, I think it fits that bill just fine. But that pick had an asterisk next to it. Actually, multiple asterisks. For one, Betabound has its problems. Problems that, depending on who you are and how you play Starbound, could be deal breakers. Problems that were outlined in quite thorough detail in a comment someone posted on my mod recommendations video. It's on screen now, and you can pause and read through it if you want. Not gonna lie, as someone who loves Betabound, that wall of text kinda stung me hard. I get that wasn't the intent, but that was one reason why I started reconsidering that recommendation. That was asterisk number 1, I suppose you could say. Asterisk number 2 was, there was a mod I wanted to check out since long before I made my mod recommendations video. Ever since it first released about 2 years ago, in fact. Something I've said I likely would have picked over Betabound if I had substantial experience with it at the time I made that video. As you might be able to tell from the footage, if not this video's title, I finally got around to downloading that mod and seeing what it's about. This is Maple32. Right off the bat, I need to say that Maple32 is a larger mod that adds tons of content to Starbound, but the amount of content it adds is nowhere near Frackin' Universe's level, even Arcana's for that matter. To give you an idea of what Maple32 adds, there are 2 new races, the New and the Glut, 7 new planet types, and 30 new biome types. To quote the mod's description for a moment, there are supposedly, quote, 300 plus new dungeons, micro-dungeons, and encounters, some of which are space dungeons and encounters, to discover, steal, or explode. End quote. Obviously, I don't have footage of every single one of these encounters and dungeons here, and I'm bound to miss other aspects of this mod and or get some details entirely wrong. What that description doesn't tell you is that both races get a new ship. It's the same for both the New and the Glut, and I was not expecting the base tier 1, 2, and 3 New and Glut ship to be roughly equivalent to a vanilla tier 5 or 6 ship. Upgrades make it more massive and roomy, though only up to a certain point. Each upgrade after that point simply adds more rooms and fills out the space within the ship. Still, if you wanted, you could put your entire base on the News and the Glut's tier 3 ship and maybe have room to spare. It's at this point where I need to mention that if you want to download Maple32, you also need to download a mod called Placeable Dynamic FTL Drive. Without it, the game will crash when it tries to load the new ship since it needs this other mod to work. Both races have their own assortments of weapons and armor, and to be honest, I don't have that much to say about them. The weapons are your standard set of swords, daggers, sniper rifles, pistols, and so on. They're fine, they work, and though they seem to have some balance issues in earlier versions of this mod, I didn't really run into any balance issues myself. Poking through Maple32's weapons and armor told me that, at least as of the time I'm making this video, the Glut are kind of unfinished. While the New have full armor sets up to tier 6, the Glut only have up to tier 4. Most of their sets don't even have proper names, with individual armor pieces being called things like tier 4 helmet or tier 3 chest, and they only have 2 unique weapons. That said, there's nothing game-breaking about the Glut on a base level. And they have their own traits. They move slower than the New, they have a natural resistance to poisons. Oh, and the fact that the New are described as troglodytes. I think they're supposed to be bats, while the Glut are, to quote a comment from the mod itself, squishy cartilaginous beings hailing from the toxic deserts of Guklth. And there's the new getting their own dungeons and settlements, while the Glut get nothing of that sort. With that point established, I can only guess that future updates will fill out the Glut's roster of weapons and armor, and give them their own settlements and encounters. Also, I'm not complaining about the Glut being unfinished. As they are right now, they're unique and fun to play as. Now, about those 7 new planet types. I loved them, and I had a great time exploring every single one of them. For the most part. I did have a few issues regarding a couple of these planet types, and I'll get to those in a moment. To start off, here's Shattered, which might be the hardest planet type in Maple32. They're definitely the most unique. Giant tractor beams orbit around them and pull them apart to mine their raw materials, hence the name. If you can avoid enemies that deal incredible amounts of damage, if you have a way to get to one of the upper planet segments so you can beam out, and if you have the Frost Nucleus Canister's EPP equipped, you can get some of that sweet loot for yourself. That's another thing about Maple32's planet types. 2 of them, Shattered and Aeolian, need their own special EPPs, the latter needing the crystal heat reactors since those planets are so cold. Well, okay, you can survive on an Aeolian planet with vanilla EPPs, since the only time the crystal heat reactor comes into play is during extreme blizzards. You can avoid those by going underground or building a shelter. I'd still say it's best to grab the mod's EPPs though. Also, Maple32's EPPs are purpose-built for Shattered and Aeolian planets. The Frost Nucleus Canisters and the Crystal Heat Reactor only provide cooling and heating support respectively. To put it differently, if you were to land on a moon with either of Maple32's 2 EPPs equipped, you'll suffocate to death from a lack of oxygen, since those EPPs do not provide that in environments with no atmosphere. As for the other planet types, they're more approachable and less difficult than Shattered and Aeolian. In no particular order, there's Thrash, an ocean planet, Verdurous, a type of forest or jungle planet, Steppe, a planet type dominated by steppe biomes, as you might expect, really chilly steppe biomes, I should say, Bioindustrial, which is... Okay, if I had to listen to this all day long, I'd probably hijack a shuttle and fly to a forest planet that's much calmer and less noisy, like the aforementioned Verdurous planets. Then I'd come down with a rogue biode infection during my stay, biodes being a technology used by the new, and I'd run off to a regular forest planet, quarantine myself, then hang out with some Florence for a while. All jokes aside, bioindustrial planets are described as having forests genetically engineered to neutralize toxins produced by industrial processes, therefore making them safe to live on while allowing for a higher level of industrialization. Safe to live on, eh? With that noise, that's debatable. Apparently, the new are okay with all of this, since I tended to find more new settlements on bioindustrial planets than anywhere else. If I had to give bioindustrial planets any positives, the forests have an autumnal look to them. That's cool. The last new planet type is Hazy. These have thick atmospheres with constant reduced visibility, though thankfully the haze isn't too overwhelming. Even at night, I could spot enemies and hazards for the most part. Your mileage may vary regarding visibility though, and I did run into some enemies wearing armor that camouflages them well in darker environments while on a hazy planet. Speaking of darker environments, how about that underground? Maple32 overhauls underground exploration a fair bit, complete with its own slate of new underground biome types. Hey, I did mention earlier that the new were described as troglodytes, cave dwellers. These were seriously fun to explore, seeing things like underground oceans, swamps, and these giant trees. Maybe grab a light though, so you can more easily see all the new food items and minerals Maple32 adds. Just be careful not to have this happen to you while exploring. These might be the abyssal plunges the mod keeps talking about. Or maybe it's referring to these. In any case, it was in these underground biomes where I was reminded of Internia, another Starbound mod I took a look at a few months back. Internia also adds its own planet and biome types, including underground biomes that function kinda like Maple32's, but differ in certain ways. For one, you can find full dungeons and stuff like Apex settlements within Internia's undergrounds. I'm not sure if that's a thing with Maple32. I did not explore enough to see one, but if Maple32 doesn't have these at all, know that I'm not complaining. These biomes are still so fun to see and fun to explore. It's also here where I really got to hear Maple32's music, and I cannot believe it's taken me this long to even mention that. Yeah, Maple32 adds its own music. That came as a complete surprise to me, but I liked it and thought it was a neat touch, at least once I managed to listen to enough of it without it being obscured by background ambience. Hopefully it won't plunge this video into Content ID hell. Famous last words, I suppose. Honestly, as much as I loved Maple32, I have to admit I had some issues with it. The noise on bio-industrial planets, the diseases and debuffs that can latch onto you and take a long while to go away, the noise made by the bug swarms I found while exploring the underground on a verdurous planet being slightly too loud for my tastes. I get that some of you may not have the same feelings about these as I do, and that's fine. You're free to disagree with me on stuff like that. Call them nitpicks if you want to. And I know I barely discuss things like the incredible amount of food items and crops Maple32 adds, and stuff like grenades you can throw at your feet for a quick heal, or a syringe that camouflages you for a short time when used. Not to mention all the new space encounters and space settlements. Kinda wish I'd gotten footage of some of those. Taking all that into consideration, I will say that Maple32 fits the bill for a Vanilla Plus or an Enhanced Vanilla mod that I can recommend to newer players. You could say it's a stepping stone to larger mods like Arcana while not making significant changes to Vanilla's progression. And yes, it's compatible with Frackin' Universe. Even by itself though, Maple32 is a great and amazing mod. Not without its problems, but I loved it. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this and want to see more, you can do all the typical supporting people on YouTube things. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it with your friends, all that stuff. I also have a Patreon and a Ko-fi you can throw $1 or $2 at if you want. Links to those, and more, will be in the description. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye for now.